Fellow Rotarians, it is my pleasure to introduce Chuck Rund today. Chuck Rund was president of Charlton Research Company, a public policy and opinion research firm that designs and develops strategies for clients in business, politics, and the law. The company conducted extensive national public opinion research for over 250 corporations, including 24 listed in the top 100 of the Fortune 500. Recognized as an expert in the research and analysis of specialized issues affecting the political community, Mr. Rund has been a key player in 4 presidential campaigns, 12 gubernatorial campaigns, 17 Senate races, campaigns for 48 elected congresspeople, and many state and local initiative campaigns. Mr. Rund has been an election night analyst for CBS News for 32 years and remains abreast of national and statewide trends. In recent years, Mr. Rund has also served on several boards, including All Care Health, the Grants Pass Family YMCA, the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber of Commerce, and the Rotary Club of Grants Pass, and volunteered in numerous community activities. I'll just add, I got the chance to see Chuck speak at the Grants Pass Rotary several months ago. And, you know, most political conversations that we have these days feel like they generate a lot more heat than light. And I think one of the reasons I'm excited to have Chuck here today. Chuck brings the light. It's an enlightening analysis and one I think we'll all benefit from. So without further ado, please welcome Chuck.
Well, good afternoon on this fine Wednesday. I enjoyed your questions you had with Sergeant. If you go back in time, by the way, there were 13 various groups that came out of the Greek first set of democracies. You know, there were the Athenians, there were the Spartans, and there were the Sybaritics. Now, the Sybaritics were in the business of lavishing luxury on themselves. So I love that question, and that's one way to think about where that goes. Well, as a fellow Rotarian, I want to say before I start my talk, thank you for all you do for Medford, all you do for the country, really, and all your engagement in Rotary activities. I think because of Rotary, you know, we're a much better people and a much stronger place to live and be. And with that, let me turn on my clicker here. I didn't turn it on until I got up here. Let's see. So anyway, thank you, Kurt, for that introduction. And thank you, Scott, for helping me be able to actually be up here. So I appreciate that. I think a talk like this probably is fun because of the 4th of July that we just went through. People are thinking about the 250th. Who is America? Where are we? Where have we come? Where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? And what does it mean to us? I'll try to touch on some of that today in the context of what the 2026 midterm is really all about. I mean, I think this particular atmosphere we're in is highly competitive. This is as competitive as the nation's ever been. It's highly divided. It's as partisan as we've been for almost 200 years, okay? And it really is tied. There's a tie in most of the election things. So the thought to think about is who wins a tie? Interesting question. So when there's a tie and the tie continues, you know, how do you engage in the fact that there is no win? There's just kind of a process we have to engage in. With that, let me kind of jump in and talk a little bit about some slides and some data on this. This is just a sources and backgrounds statement. The data I'm going to show you today is all public data. It is all paginated. If you'd like to read some of these, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to walk you through some of that and show you what it's about. But these are sources that let you know where I came from and where we're going to go. The next is kind of today's presentation. What is the context for the 2026 election? What are the mood and issues of the American public? Referendum on the president, or is it a choice election? Where do we stand politically in terms of understanding where politics is? The 2026 midterm, what's at stake? We'll just chat through some of that briefly to say What is at stake? How do we understand that from a political perspective? And then lastly, where are we going and what does it all mean? I think you think I have an answer. Well, don't be too surprised if I don't. But anyway, with that, let's just jump into some of these data points. The context for this election, this is voter turnout. People talk about this a lot, but if you take a look at where we are today in American politics, the last two elections cycles that we have over here, you can see that was 20 and 24. In 24, that was the second highest turnout in American politics we've had among eligible voters since 1908. The time that had more turnout since 1908 was 2020. Americans are engaged in politics today higher than they've been in the last 100 years. No matter what you think about what's going on in politics, no matter which side or if you don't have a side, the American public is engaged in a way we've never had them engaged for 100 years. And I think it's just important to kind of put that context in mind. I know there's a lot of things that people talk about. Where are we today? This is an important piece to take a look at. By the way, it also works for the interns. I mean, the interim, the two highest last midterm elections we've had are the highest we've had since 1976. There you go. So it works both ways. It's both at the presidential level and at the level. There's a lot of change and control taking place. There have been 33 elections since 1960. 17 of those elections have been change elections. Since 2020, since 2000, we've had 13 elections. 11 of them have been change elections, and the last 6 have been change elections, and we're going into the 7th. So I have a little thing for you as I then now go through some data on this, is that as you're looking at these data, think about who you think is going to win and why. What's going to get the winning team across the line if they can get across the line? And then, how would you assess, where America is as we kind of look at that? But this idea of change, it's rampant in society. It's been around for the last, 26 years in spades in a lot of ways. And it's really something that we're seeing to kind of take a look at. And then lastly, who's motivated to vote? Starting to get into some data. I'm not going to go through all the line pieces, but take a look at the top part of the data, as you can see up here with U.S. citizens as a whole. And that is, and then right below that is the partisanship for R's, D's, and independents. And one of the things that comes out of that is that Democrats now hold about a 10 to 12 point lead in enthusiasm, excitement, and engagement in the 2026 midterm. We'll see if that lasts. There's only 118 days to go. I know you can't wait. I'm kidding. But the idea is that, there's really a lot going on here. And that's one way. Some mood and issues. The reason why we talk about mood and issues are that there's a couple of standard ways of looking at American politics. One, if you want to be elected, you need to understand where the American people are and what their mood is. What do they think is important, and how do you reflect that in your campaign? The second is that it's imperative that you actually solve the nation's #1 problem. Not the 14th problem on the list, not a problem you think is interesting and nice, but what are the problems? So we'll take a look at some of those issues going on with mood and things. So this is a question from Gallup, which is on how satisfied are you with the way things are going? Look at the bottom of this chart. It's where I'd like to have you pay attention to that bottom line. It's kind of pretty walked up. This has got basically, the data's got 32% of the people say they're satisfied with where the United States is going today. Pretty low, way at the bottom, and all of that. The upper chart, as you can see, has a different set of numbers to it. And that different set of numbers is 78%. And that's people who think their life and they're very satisfied. So I'm doing great. The country's really in trouble. This is pretty much what this says. I mean, the mood of the country starting off with is that most people are saying, my life's pretty good. I like my life. It's pretty good. I'm really confused by politics. I'm having trouble. But, and I feel good with where I am and what's happening. But I just don't know how to attach it in any way to what's going on in our country from a political perspective. Most important issue, the left-hand side of this chart. And I did this because I like some of the work, by the way, regardless of their politics. Fox News actually has some good polling data. And as a pollster, I kind of take a look at those kind of elements pretty well. But you can see that 41% of the people are talking about economic issues, affordabilities, and all of that. Okay, that's what I mean by solve the nation's #1 problem. And that is really, really clear, because if you're not solving that problem, you're really not talking to the American public, and you're really not understanding what their mood is. As you see, the Iraq War is here. I mean, I'm sorry, the Iran War is here. You know, that far right-hand side, it was unpopular going in. It's still unpopular today, if you thought about that. It's not an exciting war. People are not engaged, and America doesn't exactly know where we're going. Since polling came into existence in the early 1930s with George Gallup and the work he did, so for about 90 years now, we've looked at that. Most of the time, the #1 problem in the country has either been economics or war, peace, those kinds of issues. That's the driver. If people aren't talking about those or engaged, then you're not really being dealt well with in what's taking place. Let's see. So I just brought one economics chart, and I didn't bring it in the data from public opinion research. So this is something that I basically stole to get a way to take a look at. You've heard about the K economy. Right? So what you see on the upper line here is this is the Wall Street and the S&P, and it's the highest it's ever been in the history of the S&P and in the history of the market. And the lower line is what the University of Michigan's satisfaction survey is all about. And it's the lowest it's been in recorded history for the last 75 years. So there's the K. So Wall Street's doing really good. So I hope you got a lot of stocks. Main Street's in trouble. Main Street's not making it. It's not there. It's very important to take a look. One of the questions we always ask is, there's never been a time in our nation and in the world, actually, that we've had more money than we have today. There's actually enough money to pay money to all people in the world. So there's some interesting ways to think about that, because we're not talking in the trillions, not even in the billions, but we'll get to that in a second. So, and then unexpected, here's a good question to take a look at the citizens of what's going on with that. If you had an unexpected $1,000 expense, could you pay for it? As you can see here, 37% could not, 27% couldn't pay for it, and it would be very difficult for another 15, and 24% would have some difficulty. 16% of America can actually write a check. Ooh. So are we having trouble in the country? Is the trouble economic? Is it real? Yes. And so think hard now about which candidates you've heard lately talk to you about what their solution for this is, and how, in fact, it's going to help not only your life, but the life of the nation as a whole. You should write all those down. I'm just kidding. But anyway, it's one of those things. Maybe you all did. That's exactly what I saw. So anyway, moving right along. Referendum on the president. Midterms are always a referendum on the president. Whatever the president's done, however he's going about doing it, whatever he's accomplishing or not accomplishing, that's what that's all about. So basically, it's about the #1 factor there, and that is the approval rating of the president. Donald Trump's approval rating was at 53% when he began. Actually, this is some CBS polling data. I always have to go back to, my big media company, because I worked with them for a number of years, and just to give some of their data, because I always like their data. Actually, they have a really good data structure, but it's dropped down now to 38%. So that's underwater in a way. When you take every single issue in the nation, the top 16 issues, and you ask what Trump's job approval rating is, every single one is under 50%. If the election's a referendum on the president, the Trump role in this election is going to be a negative role, not a positive. And where's the election? I've said it before. It's tied. That's interesting, isn't it? Ooh, what do these things mean? Here we go. So congressional job approval, one of the reasons why Trump maybe is doing so well, it's a congressional job approval is 10%. He's at 31. He's at 38. It's a 4-to-1 fight. It's not only a big microphone, it's that no one sees Congress doing very much at all in anything that's positive. And it's as low as it's ever really been. I mean, look at these data. I mean, this is 9/11, by the way, just so you understand how some of these spikes occurred, what that's all about. And the drop off has been all the way through here to this. But you see that 10%. So the Congress is going to come out and tell us how they're going to solve the problems. Great. I like the help that's showing up. midterm elections, what's at stake? The party holding the White House lost 18 of the last 20 midterms since World War II, with the average loss of 25 seats. Trump lost 42 seats in 2018. The GOP is defending only 3 seats won by Harris in 2024, while the Democrats are defending 13 Trump seats won by Trump. The toss-up or lean seats are 16 Democrats, and the Democrats are defending 16 seats. The GOP is defending 22. So if you say, where is it? There's not even 40 seats in play, or just barely 40 seats in play, where there was a change of 40 seats in 18. The politics is so partisan and so even and so tied that we're now down in the 30s for how many seats could possibly change. And the House has a 3-seat majority with the Republicans in charge. Where's it going to go? Because the national election we're holding this year is in the House. That's where everybody gets to vote for the same kind of a person called a member of Congress. That's the national election. So the congressional midterm, is critical because it really does give us an insight and view of where we're going there. I won't go through all these, but just quickly on this House ratings, this middle bar here, the Republicans have 212 seats. This is according to Cook Political Report. I don't know if you look at that or you ever listen to Charlie Cook and his team and but he's really great, and you can take a look at that. But you can see that there's 212 seats that lean Democrat. There's 205 that lean Republican, 205 that lean Democrat, which means that the Democrats are only 6 short of the 218 majority to hold the House. The second is the Democrats are 13 short, but of those that are up, the Republicans have 14 seats up and the Democrats only have 4. Boy, I love it when I give a set of data and you know exactly how to add that up and make sure that it's your side won, right? I'm kidding. You got to have some fun at this, It's this is just, but it's, as you can see, it's very close. It is kind of tied. There's a lean for the House to go for the Democrats this time around, no matter what anybody says, although the Republicans have better numbers starting off. The Democrats have done quite a good job in terms of positioning themselves right. The number one issue we really look at for the national election is what they call the national generic ballot. And that means if the election were held today, would you vote for a Republican or for a Democrat? And then you vote for them. And you can see the Democrats have about a 6 to 8 point lead in this data across the generic charts. This is actually an important dependent variable that fits in most people's thinking about building a strategy, simply because it's quite accurate and has proven that the party leading in that particular measurement is going to do well on election day. The Senate. This is Larry Sabato out of the University of Virginia. He does a really good thing in terms of American politics. Let's get back here. There's 4 seats, according to Sabato's analysis, that are up for grabs for the Senate. The Democrats need 3 seats to take over the Senate. They have a good shot, as we said, in the House, but they need to take over the Senate if they want to control the Congress as a whole. It's in Maine. You all know what's going on in Maine. I don't know if I want to spend any time with, right, we won't get into that too deeply. Michigan, Ohio, and Alaska. The seats that are lean Democrat are the Georgia seat with John Ossoff, and then the New Hampshire Senate seat. And the seats that are leaning Republican are Texas and Iowa. Okay, so those seats are saying they're up for grabs. They're only leaning seats. And so the Democrats, if they win all 4 of the yellow seats, they win the control of the Senate. They'll have the control of the party next time around, but they've got to win. Okay, they are getting 1 seat already. The seat over there that you see in stripes on this chart, North Carolina, okay, has Roy Cooper way ahead in that seat, and he's leading, expected to win that seat, and it'll go Democrat. So now they only need 2. So let's take a look quickly. Seeing this is a midterm election, we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I couldn't go through this briefing with you to a degree. This is kind of a briefing in terms of what's going to happen and what the market's calling for here, okay? Is that what are the seats that are up? Who are the people who are playing in these seats? And then what do we know about them? Just to give you an idea, it probably takes me as much time as I'm doing now to give you a 1-state report on each one of these. You don't have to stay around for that. The first one is in North Carolina. As I said, it's moved away. Michael Watley is the former RNC chairman, Republican National Committee chairman. He's 8 to 10 points down, and they're predicting that seat's going to go for the Democrat. The New York Times in Siena came out with a poll just this last weekend and talked about what seats are up and what the percentages were with that. So the second one is Susan Collins in Maine, and she's up against Grant Plattner, who has had some difficulties in the last couple of weeks here, and particularly over the weekend. If you haven't heard, Maine is wondering whether or not Grant Plattner is going to be their candidate, or he's also wondering about that. However, he's ahead of Susan Collins in the last poll they did at 48 to 46. Now, that's within the margin of error in statistical terms, so it's a tie, but essentially they're tied. Everybody knew most of what Grant Plattner was prior to the midterm primary, and he won by huge margins. Very interesting. Where is America going? Where are we today? And how are the big political parties handling the roles? Ohio, John Husted is appointed U.S. Senator. He took the J.D. Vance seat. Okay, he's up against Sherrod Brown, who lost in the last Senate election. He's up by 2 points over Sherrod Brown. In Alaska, you got Dan Sullivan and Mary Peltola. Okay, that seat has got the incumbent senator, who is Sullivan, up by 2 points over Mary Peltola. Interestingly enough, there's a candidate running in Alaska, and the reason why it's a seat that's up for grabs, whose name is Dan Sullivan. He's a third candidate running. So you've got Dan Sullivan is going up against Dan Sullivan and Mary Peltola. The reason why that race, which is a 10+ seat for Republicans, is everyone in Alaska going to figure this out by election day. So they got 118 days. Look, there's time. You can figure out where you want to vote, right? You've all figured out all your votes, I'm sure. So there we go. Taking a look anyway at Michigan. This is a state that's primary is not until for 3 weeks now. And over the weekend, one of the players in this primary fell out. Mallory McMorrow dropped out of the race, leaving only El Sayed and Haley Stevens as the candidates on the Democratic side. We'll find out which one they pick. Trying to analyze that today as to say who's up against one or the other is very difficult. Michigan is one of the states that's a straight turnout state. It is one of the battleground states in the country. One of the things that's happened in American politics and why it's a tie is that all the blue states only elect blue senators. All of the red states only elect red senators. First time in our history that 3 states, Maine, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, have a Republican and a Democrat senator. 3 states in the whole nation are split. There's 24 reds, 19 blues, and 7 in the middle. And so what's happening in America, the split and this partisan engagement we're at, is really playing a role in terms of how the candidates go. So which way does it turn out from that? That I can spend more time on this. This is other likely Senate candidates in New Hampshire, John Ossoff in Texas and Iowa. These are states that have gone 10 to 15 points for Trump in the past, okay? But they've got some competitive races there. There's a tie right now in Texas with Ken Paxton and James Tallarico. So that seat's tied. Iowa is a seat that's evenly balanced with these candidates, and John Ossoff actually is leading Representative Mike Collins in that Georgia race, and that could be the second Republican or the second Democrat seat to hold. So the Democrats have to hold the Georgia seat, and they've got to win 2 of these others, along with North Carolina going their way, and then they can take over. So I hope that was completely clear. We're not going to talk about governors. I love governors' races. The reason why I love them because there's only 50, okay? And in the Senate, there's 100 senators. And in the House, there's 435 members of the House. But there's only one CEO of every state, and that CEO is a lot like a president. So we've got 51 CEOs in America that run our nation's governments. And those are the governors. So this is a very exciting place to go. It's a really important place to look. Sometime later, we can maybe have that conversation. So what's going on and what does it all mean? One of the things that has proven to be very interesting is the majority of both political parties say that the Republican Democrats voters cannot agree on the basic facts. That yellow line is they don't just disagree on the policy that someone is talking about. They disagree on the facts that go into the debate that talks about that policy, 80%. Oh my goodness. So you're going to have a debate with someone and they're going to say all the facts you have are wrong and all my facts are correct. And 80% of America has kind of found themselves in this situation. Clearly an interesting spot to think how you're going to persuade the other side to do anything, if you can. The race, by the way, overall in the nation has got about 6 to 8% independents. Those 6 to 8% will decide this election. The partisans do not seem to be leaving parties. By the way, we found in most of the data that I've read so far, that CNN New York Times poll, is that the negatives there are for the Democratic Party, that means they're not doing as well as the Republican Party is as a party, are not hurting the candidates who are running. Don't get too excited. On the other side, Trump seems to not be dragging down anyone running in his states. Interesting. So whatever that leadership role is, okay, is absent, and the independents are going to choose which way to go in the election. And there we are taking a look at what that means. Here's just some stuff on meaning and understanding. I'll spend a little bit of time with you on Howe and Strauss, just because of the fact that we're at our 250th and what that means. But here are several different books. I've got 2 or 3 pages of this. Anybody who wants the bibliographies that I kind of take a look at, I think, you would find some real time. One of them I will mention, if you're at all engaged in economics, is Brad DeLong, Slouching Towards Utopia, has written a really fabulous book. And he talks about the long century, which is from 1870 to 2010. And basically, it's a statement of what is the GDP in the world that existed in 1870, and what is the GDP existing in the world in 2010, and what does that mean, and how does that fit in terms of the relationship to society. That's when I said earlier, there's enough money now to go around for everybody in the world to have some. What's the distribution system we're using to make that happen? You know that in American politics, that 32% of all the income is in the top 1%. In the next 9.9% is 34%. In the 40% that separates 50% from 90% is 32%. The bottom 50% of the American electorate in terms of wealth has 2.5. Ooh, it's really hard to have a big tomorrow when today is there. So what if we aren't on the brink of falling into a well-worn historical pattern, but we're actually in the midst of an unprecedented social transformation? The answer. Mandate overreach, basically the politics that we play today and have played for a while, is with all of these presidents. They came up with a mandate in their mind, particularly of where things were going to go and how they were going to handle it. They offered what that mandate was, and they overreached in trying to explain it. And then what happened is that they lost re-election, lost the House and the Senate, lost the House and the Senate, lost the House in 2022, lost the Senate later on. The last one, we're waiting to see what the result's going to be. That's this year. So it's been a very interesting period of time. We take a look at these historical elements, and that's where we've been. So what if we're not in that and something else is going on, and we should pay attention to that. So this is the Howe and Strauss model, and I use this one simply because of where we are in the 250th. Several of those books I talked about have other models to say where America is, where it can go, and how it can get out of the current situation we're in. Trust me, we Americans are very, very engaging people with an awful lot to say to ourselves and the world. And it's really important that we kind of take a look at what some of that is. Anyway, so the first one was the revolutionary cycle. That ended in 1794, that is. And then the next was the Civil War cycle. We got a few things wrong in the Constitution, and we tried to solve them in the Congress, and we went to war instead. and had a civil war. And so we didn't completely solve those issues as time went on, but we got part of them solved on that. The Great Power cycle was from 65 to 46. And that was kind of getting us through the Great Depression and the two world wars, primarily in the European theater, although Japan and the Eastern theater was involved to a degree on some of that. And now we're in the millennial cycle, which started in 1946 and ends in 2026, according to Howe and Strauss. There we are. We get to be at the end. So what does that mean? Okay. So their model is to say in a cycle, one of these cycles, and each one of the cycles are similar. And so they're kind of projecting to say, how do I understand the future by talking about the history of where we've been as a country and looking at what's going on today as they see in the public opinion marketplace. So there's a high that started, that was from 46 to 64. Okay. There was a consciousness revolution that takes place, which is the second phase of this, from 64 to 84. From 84 to 05 with the culture wars, you can all kind of remember that. And then from 05 to 2026 was the fourth turning. That means chaos and things are coming apart and no one knows where we're going to go from here. And then we repeat that cycle starting after that. Now, you don't have to buy into this, but if you don't have an idea of what the future is going to look like, or thoughts to say, I need to think about what tomorrow means to me as a nation, not just simply my 401k, but as a country, where are we now and where are we going to be? It's very, very difficult to kind of go and get some sense of where we are today and what that means. Now we're in the chaos, so it's even more difficult, but we'll go back and start this cycle over and it'll be an American high at some point in time with new leaders, new direction, new way to go. And in fact, it may change the whole game all the way around. Part of that game is being changed. If you haven't noticed, Donald Trump has instituted massive changes in the definition of American democracy. We've gone from, a global economy to a mercantile economy to a degree. I'm not sure you can kill globalism. It's really interesting. The Iran war is proving you can't. They're finding ways to get oil without worrying about going through the Strait of Hormuz. Very interesting. Long story. Takes a lot longer to tell that story, but it's a very fascinating story to tell. Anyway, so that's where that is. So what's going on? We don't know where we are historically or culturally. How do we know we've arrived somewhere when we get there? And with that, thank you very much.